The Battle of Moores Creek Bridge, fought on February 27, 1776 in North Carolina, is regarded as one of the most significant early victories for American revolutionaries during the Southern campaign of the American Revolutionary War. Despite its small scale, the battle had far-reaching implications. It thwarted British Loyalist efforts to reclaim the Southern colonies early in the war, fueled Patriot sentiment in the Carolinas, and paved the way for North Carolina's decision to declare complete independence from Britain. During the early stages of the Revolutionary War, both the British and American sides recognized that the loyalty of the Southern colonies, particularly those of North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia, was crucial to the conflict's outcome. The region's population was diverse, with wealthy planters, poor backcountry farmers, Scots-Irish settlers, and large enslaved communities. This social mix created a volatile political climate, with many colonists torn between support for independence and loyalty to the British monarchy. The British government believed that significant Loyalist support in the South could be used to re-establish control over rebellious provinces with minimal effort. In North Carolina, Royal Governor Josiah Martin was forced to flee the colonial capital of New Bern in 1775 due to rising anti-British sentiment. Martin sought refuge on a British warship off the coast and began coordinating with British military and Loyalist leaders in the hopes of staging a counter-rebellion within the colony. In early 1776, he received orders from British commanders in London to prepare for a large-scale Loyalist uprising, which would coincide with a major seaborne invasion of the Carolinas led by General Henry Clinton and Commodore Sir Peter Parker. They planned to land a British army in North Carolina and use local Loyalist militias to crush the rebel movement in the southern colonies. To prepare for this offensive, Governor Martin attempted to mobilize Loyalist forces in North Carolina's interior, many of whom were Scottish Highlanders who had settled in the Cape Fear region. These Scots emigrated after the failed Jacobite uprisings in Britain and maintained a strong loyalty to the crown. Brigadier General Donald MacDonald, a British veteran and well-known figure among the Highlanders, was one of their prominent leaders. MacDonald was joined by Lieutenant Colonel Donald MacLeod, an experienced officer who would serve as second in command. MacDonald issued a call to arms in early February 1776, urging Loyalists to gather near Cross Creek, modern-day Fayetteville, and march to the coast to meet the approaching British fleet. The Loyalist army, made up primarily of Highland Scots and other Loyalist settlers, quickly numbered nearly 1,600 men. They planned to march south and meet up with British forces expected to arrive off the coast near Brunswick Town. However, after learning of the Loyalist mobilization, the Patriots moved quickly to intercept them before the two groups could unite. On the Patriot side, North Carolina's revolutionary government responded decisively to the threat. The Provincial Congress sent militia forces to the Cape Fear region to stop the Loyalist advance. Colonel James Moore, head of the Wilmington District Brigade of Militia, took command of the Patriot forces. Moore quickly established defensive positions and directed subordinate officers to block key routes to the coast. Moores Creek, about 18 miles north of Wilmington, served as a critical choke point, with a small wooden bridge spanning the marshy creek. Control of this bridge was crucial to stopping the Loyalist advance. Colonel Richard Caswell, leading approximately 1,000 Patriot militiamen from the New Bern district, moved to fortify the western side of the Moores Creek Bridge. He was joined by Colonel Alexander Lillington of the Wilmington District Militia, who established a second position on the eastern flank. Their combined force consisted of approximately 1,000 men. Anticipating an attack, the Patriots dismantled the bridge's planks and greased the remaining beams, making crossing difficult. They also built earthworks and defensive positions to increase their firepower. The Loyalist force, led by General MacDonald, faced numerous challenges. Their ranks contained a large number of poorly armed recruits and morale was low. As they approached Moores Creek, MacDonald became ill and command passed to Lieutenant Colonel MacLeod. Unaware of the Patriots' full strength, MacLeod planned a surprise pre-dawn assault on February 27th, hoping to overwhelm the defenders and push through to the coast. It was a desperate, ultimately fatal decision. MacLeod sent his troops marching toward the bridge around 1 a.m. The Loyalists, armed primarily with broadswords and muskets, advanced in the darkness and fog. As they approached the bridge, MacLeod led the charge, anticipating only minor resistance. However, the Patriots were completely prepared. When the first wave of Loyalists attempted to cross the bridge's slick, narrow beams, they were met with an unexpected and devastating volley of musket fire from the entrenched Patriots. The firefight lasted only a few minutes, but the consequences were disastrous for the Loyalists. MacLeod and another prominent officer, Captain John Campbell, were shot and killed almost instantly. The advancing Loyalists, unable to return effective fire and trapped in a cramped space, panicked and began to retreat in confusion. The Patriots charged forward and apprehended hundreds of fleeing Loyalists, seizing large amounts of supplies, weapons, and cash. The brief but decisive encounter resulted in a rout for the Loyalist forces, with approximately 50 killed or wounded and nearly 850 captured. The Patriots only had one fatality and one injury. The victory at Moores Creek Bridge had far-reaching implications. Most immediately, it crushed the Loyalist uprising in North Carolina, effectively ending British hopes of gaining local support for an invasion of the United States. Without a strong Loyalist foothold inland, General Clinton's forces received little support when they arrived off the coast weeks later. The British naval expedition, which was defeated at Moores Creek and later repulsed at Fort Sullivan near Charleston in June 1776, was forced to retreat. These early failures represented a significant strategic setback for the British in the South. Politically, the battle strengthened the North Carolina Provincial Congress and shifted the balance of power in favor of the independence movement. Within weeks of the Patriot victory, the Congress authorized its delegates to the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia to vote for independence, the first such directive issued by any colony. This led directly to North Carolina's famous Halifax Resolves, adopted on April 12, 1776, which called for complete independence from Great Britain and encouraged other colonies to follow suit. The battle also helped to strengthen and legitimize the revolutionary government of North Carolina. With the Loyalist threat eliminated, the Provincial Congress consolidated its power, increased the militia, and began enacting policies to manage the war effort more effectively. Patriot morale skyrocketed, and the victory was widely celebrated in the press and among colonial leaders, who saw it as proof that British authority could be successfully challenged, even in areas considered strongholds of Loyalist support. On the Loyalist side, Brigadier General Donald MacDonald was a competent and loyal officer, but his illness and eventual retirement left Lieutenant Colonel MacLeod to make critical decisions. MacLeod's decision to attack a fortified position in the dark backfired, despite being under pressure and lacking solid intelligence. On the Patriot side, Colonel Richard Caswell and Colonel Alexander Lillington demonstrated strategic foresight and coordination in planning the Moores Creek ambush. Caswell's decision to remove bridge planks and grease the remaining timbers contributed to the creation of a lethal kill zone, while Lillington's flanking position prevented the Loyalists from escaping. Colonel James Moore, despite not being present at the battle, played a crucial role in organizing and deploying Patriot forces in the region, as well as ensuring that the Loyalist force was intercepted before reaching the coastline. The spoils included approximately 1,500 muskets, numerous swords, blankets, provisions, and over 15,000 pounds in silver currency. These resources were critical for the Patriots' under-equipped forces, allowing them to continue military operations in the months that followed. The Battle of Moores Creek Bridge also exposed deep divisions in colonial society. Families and communities were torn between Patriot and Loyalist sympathies, and the battle fueled animosities that would lead to civil unrest across the southern backcountry. Following the battle, Patriot authorities cracked down on suspected Loyalists, confiscating property and imposing loyalty oaths. These measures, while strengthening revolutionary control, sowed the seeds of bitterness that would last long after the war was over. Moores Creek demonstrated the military effectiveness of local militias operating in familiar terrain and employing unconventional tactics. Unlike European armies, which emphasized formal battles and rigid formations, American militias frequently relied on mobility, ambushes, and intimate knowledge of their surroundings. The success at Moores Creek foreshadowed similar engagements in the Southern Theater, where guerrilla warfare and local resistance would be critical, particularly in later battles in South Carolina and Georgia. The battle also signaled a turning point in British strategy. When British commanders realized that Loyalist support in the South was less reliable than expected, they began to reconsider their approach. Though they returned to the Southern Theater in force in 1780, the defeat at Moores Creek and subsequent failures in 1776 contributed to a temporary shift in focus to the northern colonies. This reprieve enabled Southern Patriots to strengthen their position, prepare defenses, and expand political control without the immediate threat of a large-scale invasion. Moores Creek National Battlefield was designated a historic site in 1926 to commemorate the battle and is now managed by the National Park Service. Today, the site preserves the battlefield and houses a reconstructed bridge and visitor center. Interpretive programs and reenactments help to educate the public on the significance of the battle and its role in the larger struggle for American independence.